Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for the up. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who. Wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha and welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. Today we do our Week 4 opponent preview as the Packers get set to ride into Sunday Night Football in Jerry World to face the Cowboys, looking to get back on the winning side of the ledger and head into the bye week 3-1. You know, team is licking its wounds from last Sunday's disappointing loss.
No, that wasn't a beer. That was just a regular drink. Anybody listening?
Like I said, we're past the morning stage and we're looking ahead to the next opponent. But, you know, the Packers are still in a good spot. I know that, they gave up, half a game on the division by losing, but you lost a non-conference game. All the other teams in your division are, there's three with the same record, but Green Bay has the tiebreaker because we have the head-to-head over Detroit. Our loss is a non-conference, and both, obviously, Detroit's one loss is to us. Minnesota's is to Atlanta, so they have an NFC loss. And Green Bay is still in the driver's seat, and in order to keep it there, you keep up with one of LaFleur's adages and try to go 1-0 this week. Heading in, Packers have a long but kind of not unexpected injury list. So the only DNPs today were Aaron Banks, Zach Tom, and Javon Bullard, though it should be noted that Bullard was doing exercises with the trainer on the side of practice, so he is going through protocol. We'll see if he participates in practice.
That's like stage 2, isn't it?
I forget which stage is which at this point, but it is like he's doing on-field activities, and so it's like a next stage in the progression, and it's a matter of how he fares, how he wakes up tomorrow, if he passes the baseline testing, and then that's why everyone's like, oh, like what's his status and stuff. I'm like, if he misses 2 days in a row, he's not playing, but until you see 2 days of practice in a row, you can't tell. So even if he's just limited on Friday, we've seen guys who only practice, quote unquote, practice 1 day coming off a concussion and participate in the game. That said, if there's any question, you just sit him out this week.
And not to say that it's talk bad about it, but it's not like they don't have the pieces there that can cover him if he can't go. It's not like the offensive line where we're going to be sitting here, oh God, this is going to be like the 12th rotation and just 4 plays. They've got pieces that they can fit in there that if he can't go.
Yeah, if they want to stick with their big nickel, so like a third safety, they can bring Kitan Oladapo in, who had a good preseason. Want to see how he translates that to regular season action. And then Hobbs is there, and Hobbs was one of the full participants. So Hobbs, Love, and Melton were all full participants. And the limiteds were just a cavalcade of names here. So the two that raised the biggest flags are the fact that Belton and Rasheed Walker, are limited participants, just because you already got 2 starters who are out with injury, and you have one more starter who's limited and another probable starter in Belton who's dealing with something, but it's good that he participated regardless. Carl Brooks, who didn't seem to leave the game at any point, has a foot. Devontae Wyatt has a knee, but looks like he was able to get through it all okay. But, that does bring into question, will a Warren Brinson be up this weekend? And then Kraft continues to add to his collection of reasons to be a limited participant. Kind of figured that'll be the case for him. He's that kind of, bang your head against the wall tight end, so he's going to pick up boo-boos along the season. You just hope to see that knee dropped off sooner.
But it's injury, though.
Yeah, it's an elbow. So probably, they're at the point where they're listing anything and everything, so you just hope to see that they don't get to...
Which team was it? Was it the Falcons that just got fined for not disclosing or properly documenting an injury?
Something like that. So, this is probably being a little snarky with it. And, not great to see Jacob still on there with the ankle and Fitzpatrick being on there with the groin. So we'll see where those guys are going into the week. And then on the Cowboys side, it's a much shorter list, but it's a much more important bunch of guys who are missing. So their DNPs were Tyler Booker, Trevon Diggs, and CD Lamb. Lamb and Booker are ruled out already. And Diggs, I'm not sure what his status is. I don't know if that's a re-aggravation. He is coming off of ACL repair, so I don't know if there's a setback there or not. And then Deron Bland and Chiquiz Bridges are dealing with foot and knee injuries, respectively. And that's three cornerbacks listed for the Cowboys who are reeling in their own right, have been just getting smoked the past 2 weeks on defense. So, I want to say it's a get right game for Green Bay, but it's setting up that way. And this is one of those where um, the thought process going into this one is just go get the win. Like it, I don't have the same trepidation as I have last week, where like Cleveland was definitively great on one side of the ball, and in a way that could screw up your game plan, which did end up happening. I know that Dak is off to a really good start this year. Like he has 3 interceptions, and two of them, like one of them shouldn't have counted because the Giants player definitely did not catch the ball. One of the more wild, unreviewed turnovers on the season. And then the other one is a Rodgers 2018 special where it went off of George Pickens' hands on the pass. So, Dak is playing pretty well to start this season. They're probably 2-1 if CD doesn't drop a gazillion passes on opening Thursday Night Football. But
And I mean, if you look at his stat wise, he's at a 90. What was it I just saw? He's at a 90%, no, 71.4% completion rating. So I mean, really, he's throwing the ball well. He's taking care of the ball as best as he can. It just seems like his pieces aren't doing anything for him.
yep, they're. It's hard when you're having problems blocking up front. And the one thing is that Javonte Williams is having a strong season so far. Their two main running backs are averaging 5.3 and 6.1 yards per carry. So this will be a good test for the defensive front seven. They still held up their end of the bargain. You saw some leakage late in the game, but I do think against Cleveland, that was a matter of, fatigue, time of possession piling up. And you don't like to see that in week 3 already, but I mean, that's kind of what happens when your offense just can't get any traction going. So that's one thing. Knock on wood. Packers offense shouldn't, even with our shuffled O line, this Packers offense shouldn't have trouble moving the ball on Dallas. There was a stat I saw going around that Dallas's top 3 or 4 edge rushers had a 0 pass rush grade combined against the Bears O line. And I know that they're playing in Chicago on that god awful turf, but still, like, that is an embarrassing effort against a still very bad Bears offensive line to be a net negative, because 60 is like average on PFF's grading and stuff, and to be a 0 is just a different kind of dreadful. So it's shaping up to be, I don't like to throw around the term get right game, because this isn't like when you play nowhere direction university in college, but the way Dallas is reeling right now, like I said, they're missing their top weapon on offense. George Pickens is like 2 bad plays away from fighting someone and getting ejected from the next game. And
that's why I was a fan of Pickens' play coming out as a rookie, but that was the one thing about him, was he was a hothead. And that's where it goes back and makes you wonder what exactly Brenton Cox did to get kicked off both friggin' Georgia and Florida, when Georgia still kept like George Pickens and guys like that. So nothing against Brenton. He's a really good guy and all that stuff, but it just makes you wonder what happened there, that they keep a guy like Pickens, but they kick out a guy like Brenton Cox.
yep. So, I mean, you just look at where Dallas stands as a defense, and yeah, it's gonna feel like a total opposite for the Packers. Like I said, they come from facing the like number 1 rush defense and the number like 6 pass defense, I think Cleveland was going into our game last week.
Oh,
and you're
man.
going against the in terms of rush yard or yards per rush. Dallas is actually doing okay yards per rush wise. They're ninth, but they are allowing 100, just under 110 rush yards per game, which is 17th. So slightly below average. And then it's passing yardage wise. They are in opponent yards per pass at 9.8. So basically giving up a first down every time the opponent drops back to throw. 288 yards pass yards per game, 32nd in the league, and completion percentage just a shade under 74%, and their their sack percentage is just over 4%, 27th in the league.
They
They're
have
intercepting
3 sacks.
Yeah, and like a bunch of those are like getting Jalen Hurt
Kenny
to
Clark, James Houston, and Marshawn Nealon.
yeah, those and like two of them are getting Jalen Hurts to run into sacks in week one, kind of thing. So, I mean, and I know that it's hard to say for the Green Bay line to gel because they know they're going in with a shuffled up O line again, but this is the week to try and get things rolling. I don't want to say dumb it down, but get your base stuff going, get your run game going a little bit, get your pass protection sorted out. That's the thing with Eberflus is he's not a big blitzer. He very much wants to rush 4 and drop 7. He'll do fire zones and things like that, but nothing super exotic. He's not a push the issue kind of defensive coordinator. If the O line can hold its water and get its shit together after last week, they're gonna force him out of his blitzing real fast because they're in a tough spot because their guys aren't natural pass rushers. The guys who they've drafted to be aren't ready yet. The rest of the guys aren't. But then their secondary is in shambles right now. Even a Malik Hooker looks old now. I know he's like 28 or 9 at this point, but he looks old at this point. Like I said, their top 3 corners are dealing with injury at this point. So it's just rough sailing for Dallas on that side of the ball, but it sets up for where it's a good situation for Green Bay. And like I said, these are the kind of things where you got to just take advantage of your opportunities. And we saw the recently benched Russell Wilson a gazillion yards on this defense, and it's just a matter of doing that.
Well, let's be fair. The Bears handed them a loss last week,
and not a small one either. So, you don't want to ever overlook an opponent, all that kind of, respect the game and stuff. But this is one for LaFleur to like, I don't want to say empty the playbook, but you're going into the bye, put some points on the board, get the team feeling good about itself again, like really gargle and rinse last week's loss out of your mouth. And, if you win this week, you're gonna be on top of the division still because you'll be undefeated in the conference, you'll be undefeated in the division. The other teams in the division can't pass you because their conference record is worse, division record is worse. So just go in, get 3-1, and like McCarthy always used to say, if you're 3-1 in every quarter of the season, that's 12 wins. And now it's a little cooped because of the 17th game, but 12 wins puts you right in position to be, I know there's only one bye in the playoffs, but 12 wins puts you in like at least on the doorstep of being that. And then if you win any more than that, you're really controlling your own destiny. So like, I know everyone's sour about it, but if you're 3-1, it is one of those, like, if you told you'd be 3-1 at the bye, a lot of fans would be happy with where the team is. And it's such a weird one because it's like, okay, like, it sucks you lost to the Browns because you had that game and all that kind of stuff, but it's actually the best one to lose if you had to lose one because it's the least consequential game out of, conference standings, playoff positioning, and all that kind of stuff because it's a non-conference game, so you can't undo it. So all you can do is go and win this game.
and you just got to hope that they rebound from it. So that's the big thing to watch for this game. How do they rebound from the loss against the Browns? Do they come out and play flat? Do they come out with some fire in them? How are they going to come out and play? Because, you should never overlook a team in the NFL because of the any given Sunday. And I know that's an overplayed cliche, but it's true. Any given Sunday, anything can happen. But this should be a relatively easy win, as easy as it can get in the NFL, just because of how beat up the Cowboys are, how uncohesive they are right now. Like you keep saying, the defensive backs for the Cowboys are not great at the moment. The offense has lost its key playmaker. Yeah, it's just going to depend a lot on how Green Bay rebounds after losing against the Browns. If they come out defeated or playing like they've been beat, then we're going to be in for a long night. But if they come out with some fire, with some drive, then it should be a good game for Green Bay. You're muted.
Like I said, this is one of those get yourself feeling good going into the bye. You know, it really did take everything going wrong last week to lose that game to Cleveland, because you had your chance at the end, and like you play such a bad game and to still have your chance at the end and unfortunately not come up with it. You know, that's sometimes how these things go, and this is why they're paid the big bucks, is to bounce back and make amends for it. So it's one of those things to be excited about as a fan, is to see the old adage of what is your team made of, and really excited to see what this team's going to do. And like you noted, there's going to be ways if you can tell how they're bouncing back and all that kind of stuff. One of the things I'm looking for is how many can they come out and control the line of scrimmage from the jump. I really think that this is going to be one of those games where LaFleur comes out and is going to really want to set the tone. You know, if they win the toss, they take the ball kind of game, because, you know, set the tone early. I know that the defense has been the better unit so far this season, but, you know, take the ball if you win the toss, set the tone, and, you know, put the pedal to the floor in this game. And we've gone almost 20 minutes and we haven't even mentioned what I know will be NBC's talking point for pretty much the entirety of the game, and that is the Parsons return to Dallas. I mean, it's showing up in our over-unders. You know, I know we're going to have fun with that tonight, but I think the other side of it is, like, the team, you know, Parsons has become a leader in this clubhouse. The way he's handled inserting himself into the roster, with getting in with the D-line row, being cheerleaders for Rashawn, being Lucas's biggest fan, all that kind of stuff. And it'll be really interesting to see if, you know, I do believe he is saying all the right things this week. You know, he was asked about Jerry saying that he's not getting Micah Parsons isn't getting a tribute video and all that kind of stuff. And I think Micah took it, you know, he's kind of like, whatever, like, no one really cares once the game starts kind of thing. And he's saying all the right stuff right now. And, like, I think he basically said about playing this game is, like, once the ball is kicked off, it doesn't really matter who we're playing. We're just trying to win the game. And it's a really good...
And didn't he say something about he's not sure how he's going to feel if he gets a sack on Dak and stuff like that?
Yeah, they're buddies and stuff. And so he said, you know, I've seen it misquoted already, but, you know, he said, like, it'll be painful and stuff. And, you know, I do think he's going in with the right attitude, just hoping that the team isn't, like, overamped for him, which is really weird to say. Usually it's the singular player who's overamped, but I do think he is legitimately going to treat it like another game. But I also think he's going to have a lot of success, because Dallas just, the guys they have on their O-line just don't match up well against him.
I don't know if he's going to treat it like any other game, because, you know, like any other player that comes back to a team that, you know, whether it's free agency, trade, whatever, they always play up a little bit because, you know, hey, I was there. I know what they did. You know, I know this and I know that. But he's not going to come out and say, yeah, I'm going to kill that guy. And I'm going to, because it's not the team, it's the players on the team that he would be mad at. It's the guy that's going to be sitting in the skybox, really made himself look like an asshole throughout the whole ordeal that he's mad at. So while I do think that he's not going to come out there and be a distraction by any means, I do think he's going to play a little bit amped up just because of him returning to Dallas for the first time as
Yeah,
not a Cowboy.
so we'll see. I think that he's handling the media side of it so far really well, but yeah, it remains to be seen how he's going to do in the game itself. But any other points you wanted to go over before we go
Well,
into
let's
our
talk about a little
overalls?
bit of the transactions that happened this week, just
Oh yes,
because I mean, it's not like major news, but they did release McCole Hardman from the practice squad.
yeah,
It's understandable. Give him, obviously he wasn't going to get on the field with the Packers right now. Give him a shot to go somewhere else, even though, all he had to do was get signed by another team since he was on the practice squad. They, shit, I just lost the guy's name. They signed,
Jacoby Keeney James,
yeah,
um,
out of UMass. He was with
yeah,
the Lions for a
Lions.
little bit,
Yeah, they signed him
but
as a UDFA. Basically, he's a um, athleticism and build wise, he's a Bo Melton clone.
he's a
Within
little bit
like,
faster, though, isn't he? Or is it the
shit.
other way around?
I think Bo is slightly faster, but Jacoby is the slightly better athlete all around. He's a little bit more agile and a little more I think and it's only like because Bo was only like yellow of the drills kind of thing, and I think Jacoby is green across all of them. The only reason he's not a 10 is because he's not very big. Like that's it. So his highlight film is a lot of fun,
I do
and
think I tried to watch him pre-draft, but I must not have made any notes on him. But I remember trying to watch somebody from UMass.
yeah, it's a fun highlight film from last year. And the thing that I take away from it is he had like 100 yards on 3 catches and a touchdown or two against Georgia, and it wasn't all in blowout time. And on one of them, on the long play he had, he like mosses 2 guys and keeps his balance after the catch and is the lone man standing and then runs in for a long touchdown. So, it's an impressive play. And then he's got like, I think they played Syracuse or something like that, and he had some production there. So, when you get a guy who's from a smaller school, like I don't even know what non-power four school at this point because they're conference realignment. But it's always nice to see those guys perform when they do play one of those power four teams. So you like to see that. And then on the other end, so the active roster was at 51 players because they had put Brenton Cox and Jaden Reed on IR without bringing anyone up. So they brought up Brant
Brant
Banks,
Banks.
yeah, to the active roster. At first I was kind of like, what is that for? Because in my mind, I'm like, he still has 2 more practice squad elevations. But when you see that Tom is like basically ruled out per like Schefter and Rappaport, and Banks didn't practice on Wednesday, they want to have those 8 offensive linemen that you can bring up so that you can have like an extra guy active on game day. So
Well, and let's face it, if Morgan or Belton shit the bed again, they want to be able to throw somebody else in
yeah,
there.
and I do think that's part of why they brought Lacita Smith back. Is like
Yeah.
he's someone that how much I don't know, but they at least are like, okay, we can play that guy at center, and if Morgan continues to shit the bed, you call up Smith, play him at center, and move Jenkins back to left guard, kind of thing. And I know that opens a whole nother can of worms about like, well, what do you do? Why did you sign Aaron Banks and all that kind of stuff? But you know what? You're like you said, you're like one more injury from survival mode on the O line. So I do think it's good work by Goody to like keep all his bases covered as much as he can with what he's dealing with in terms of O line injuries. And I mean, it's not like those open roster spots are doing anything for you, so you might as well.
And don't you have to have like a 53-man roster for like a certain, otherwise you get in
Yeah,
trouble?
yeah. I think I can't remember if it's a total number or you can't have under for so many, like you can't have more than so many open spots for like multiple weeks in a row or some crap like that. And I still do think that they are just keeping the seat warm for whoever comes off pup and IR after this game, basically after this game ends. But until that domino falls. You gotta field enough guys who can play this game, and you have enough, like you said, you have to have enough contingency factors, in the event that Tom probably isn't suiting up. There's a outside chance Aaron Banks suits up, but he probably doesn't start, kind of thing. And then you're like you have emergency, like, okay, like let's just get out of the game kind of players and stuff. So hope it
I
doesn't
will
get
say
to that.
this: if Tom even suits up, somebody needs to be looking into it, because there is
Yep.
why are they so conservative with every other injury, but now that it's Zach Tom, they're just giving him a pass.
Yeah. And my thought on that is I think LaFleur got ahead of himself. I think he
Yeah, but why wouldn't the med team have said something? Because they've been
yeah,
just as conservative.
it gets into the whole like, oh, he's cleared and he says he's okay, kind of. But I'm not going to get into that too much because, like, we talked about it on the show last week. We weren't confident in him at all. We wanted him to sit because he didn't sound confident in his ability to get out there and be athletic in his position at in such a crucial spot. But I think LaFleur, he lost the plot a little. He kind of was just like, oh, I need every protection thing in my pocket, and Zach is able to play. I'm going to start him, and that goes out after one play. But it is what it is at this point. You just, I am, I was honestly waiting for the other shoe to drop. They elevated Banks on Tuesday, and for the rest of Tuesday and into today, I was just like, oh god, are they putting Tom on IR kind of thing? And LaFleur is adamant that it wasn't a further aggravation or further injury of the existing oblique issue, but they could still turn around on Saturday and be like, yeah, he's going on IR until we're ready for him. So just hate seeing how that situation played out because I do think it was mismanaged, and LaFleur basically said as much, but it's water under the bridge. Can't do anything about it. So,
I think the bye week will tell us a lot.
yeah,
If they bring somebody, start bringing them some offensive linemen to work out during the bye week, then I think that kind of tells you that maybe Tom is more of a long-term concern than what they originally were stating. So, yeah. And now, I don't remember, so maybe you do. Did Kennard play at all against the Browns?
he did. He went in when what's it called? He went in for the 3 or 4 plays when Walker's face mask broke.
Okay. Because I was like, I don't remember seeing him go in, so why is it they keep messing with Morgan and Belton when they so
Because Belton went to left tackle, and I think Kennard went to right tackle for those 4 plays. So yeah,
okay. But yeah, I mean, obviously they've got him, they like him, they gave up a 6th-round pick for him, which before the Micah trade, it didn't sound like a lot, giving up a 6th-round pick. But now after the Micah trade, it sounds like a little bit more because that's another draft pick that they're without for this next year. So it is kind of a significant move, and there must be something there that like about him. So to say that goes into what I said about the bye week. If they start bringing in, handful of guys for tryouts that are all offensive tackles or offensive guards or can play both or swing tackles or whatever, that tells you a little bit more about the Zach Tom injury.
yep. But any other thoughts on Dallas, or you kind of ready
No,
to
I
yeah,
just same as always. You hope you go into the game or come out of the game with less injuries than what you went into the game with per se, but just make it this needs to be your statement game. I said it last week about the Browns that playing against that defense, that needed to be your statement game. You shit the bed. That's pretty much what your statement is for that week. This needs to be the statement game. Go out, blow out a bad team, and go into the bye week and relax.
yep. Go into the bye feeling good about yourself and healthy, or as healthy as you can be at this point. So, yep, it's just doesn't take too much diagnostics on this one. You're the better team by far on both sides of the ball. That's the thing that I think a lot of fans overlooked is like Cleveland is that good on defense to make a lot of teams look bad. And I know what Packers fans are going to do this week. If Detroit goes in and, has their way with Cleveland, it's going to be like, oh my God, like the Packers do suck, blah, look what Detroit just did, all that kind of crap. Like, don't.
But they have just as many problems on their offensive line that the Packers did.
Yeah. So don't fall for that cheese. All the Packers can control is what they do, and it's time for a bounce back this week. That's the way to look at it.
For sure. That's what I'm thinking. So I'm guessing you're ready for some over-under stuff because you're looking like you want to get the hell out of here. Obviously, the first one's going to be Micah returns, so over-under 1.5 sacks for Micah this week.
I'm gonna go over. I think Dallas is going to try do a lot of stuff to stop him, and I just don't think it's going to matter. But I don't think he's going to have like a stupid 4-sack game kind of thing. I think he's just going to get...
That's been my thought, is he's going to end up with 2. One's going to be a full direct sack, and the other one's going to be one of them wonky ones where it could technically be considered a QB run, so it shouldn't, but they're going to give it to him anyway type deals. Because Dak is going to try getting out there and Mike is going to get him before he actually crosses the line of scrimmage. So, yeah, I go over on that one. This one I'm going to keep on here for a while just because eventually this kid is going to get a 100-yard game. I don't care what anybody out there says. We should have probably talked a little bit about that catch a little bit more because people are really making a big thing out of it. The bigger thing out of it than it should be. He even came out and said he misread where the safety was, and had he been in better position to know where the safety was, he'd been in the end zone because he would have played it a little bit different. So
I just chalk it up to a rookie moment. It's unfortunate. This is another one of those we would have like really laughed about it if the Packers had won because it's so funny. It's on the All 22 film to watch the Packers sideline because like I think it's Malik Heath, JJ Enigbare are like, yeah, and they get like Enigbare even like turns around and faces like the stands because he's like, oh no, he had it kind of thing. And I do just think it is very much like a rookie moment and get those out now. And like, yes, obviously it would have been nice for him to have the 2-yard touchdown or whatever it would have been. I've seen a lot of people, complain about the throw and stuff and that it wasn't perfect. And I'm sorry, Jordan's throwing out of his own end zone and, he's been hit a bunch of times. I think he's been sacked 3 times at that point in the game. So he's just like, let me just get a good, safe throw out there. And made sure that he got it over the, outside of the safety. And yeah, unfortunately, Golden just, he thought he was on the sideline and he catches the ball like 5 yards from the sideline. And like you said, he kind of owned up to it and was like, if I knew better kind of thing. And I would have, done more to stay in bounds and do more with that play and stuff. But it is what it is.
And it could have looked like the safety was closing in on it. If you've never played football before, and I hate to sound like this, but if you've never played football before, having that helmet on your head skews your a lot. So that's where the whole tunnel vision thing comes from, is because you're looking out that friggin' face mask, and that's all you see.
Yeah.
So if he got a quick glance of that safety, he's like, oh crap, he's closing in. Really don't feel like getting blasted, which he comes out and says he didn't really feel like getting blasted because they had already been roughed up throughout the game. So he just played it the way he was. And that makes sense in my mind. And I know we kind of talked about it after the game, but, he was a little off balance a little bit. So it could have been momentum. And he talked about that a little bit in what I read. But he said, no, the safety looked like he was coming in, and that's how I played it.
Yeah. I just think it was a rookie moment. And also too, the other part of it to remember is he's adjusting from the college rules where he's like, I just need 1 foot down and it's a catch. And you can kind of see it where he's like, he does the triple toe tap on the sideline and it's on the second step where he's like, oh shit, like I'm not on the sideline, but by that point he's already like letting himself fall out of bounds. It's too late at that point. So, you know, on one hand, it's a bummer. On the other, it's like you still converted a third down. You made a 30-yard gain. You know, it's still an explosive play. And it's not his fault the rest of the drive went to shit after that. So, I mean, yes, obviously you always want the bigger play or the touchdown. But at the same time, he made the play. He made the minimum play that had to be made there. And it's not his fault the drive stalled and failed out after that. And at that point, I think it's 10-0, so you're kind of like, oh, just get the ball off the goal line and flip field position again and stuff. So the mindset there is a little different, but hopefully he learns from it and can translate it moving forward. But I've got the over. I think he's going to...
Well, let me state it real quick because we never did state it because I went on to a ramble. So basically the over-under is Matthew Golden, 35.5 receiving yards. I do think he's going to get the over again. But it's going to depend on how the offense is going. Are they going to feed Josh Jacobs or are they going to stick with the pass a little bit more? I'm hoping that they continue with the pass, and I hope that they just go all, balls to the wall with it. Let Jordan get his rhythm back, all that good stuff. So I'm hoping that it's going to go well that way. But I want to say he's going to at least hit 70. I do hope that this will be his first 100-yarder. Does he have a touchdown yet this season?
No, he doesn't.
Okay, so I'm going to say at least gets his first touchdown of the season, of his career. So the next one I got is Josh Jacobs, over under 40.5 rushing yards. I'm going to say over just because, like I said, I'm hoping they have a good mix, but I do think that Jacobs is going to break free at some point and gash out a good chunk. I'm going to say he's probably going to end up with like 55. So
I was saying 65. So yeah, like I think they're going to try and establish him, but we did see Wilson get a few more touches last week. I think they're going to kind of continue that, especially because he is dealing with that ankle issue that, has had him on the injury report the last week and a half so far. So, same thing, get him going, but also get him into the bye so that he can recuperate and, hopefully come off the injury report by the time we're in week 6.
And don't be afraid to use your other guys. I mean, they started doing that in the Browns game, but it seemed like the first 2 weeks they weren't using Wilson or Brooks at all.
And what's really been weird this year is that they're not using both Wilson and Brooks in the same game. Weeks 1 and 2, it was all Brooks. Wilson had like one burn the clock carry late in the game, and then and against Detroit, and then against the Commanders, he played like 5 snaps or something like that, not counting the kneel down snaps. So and honestly, it was Wilson and Brooks who were the two backs when they did a lot of the two back stuff last year. I know that Brooks and Jacobs got a bunch of snaps too, but I feel like it was more 50-50 when, in terms of who Brooks was always one of the running backs, but then it was a little more split on who the other running back was between Jacobs and Wilson. And I do think he'll get rolling a little better this week, but yeah, I think they are trying to limit his touches because he's dealing with the ankle issue and trying to keep the big picture there.
So, all right, my next one is McKinney, over under half interception. So basically, is he going to get one or is he not going to get one? I'm going to say yes. So go the over on that. It's just going to be the one just because, something's going to happen where Parsons or Gary or LVN gets into Dak's face. Dak tries to basically like how McKinney got his one against the Browns. It's going to be thrown up. He's going to be able to snipe it. He's going to be able to call it good.
I'm going to say under because I think it's going to be someone else who does it, whether it's Williams or one of the corners. Kind of like I feel like Dak's going to get hit a lot, and there's going to be some flutter balls that are going to be up for grabs for other guys. And I think the other place too is because it's at receiver, it's kind of Pickens or nothing. I think Dak is going to turn to his tight ends more, And I think this is the week where Quayer Edge gets one instead. So, um,
I think it's going to be like the old 500 game that you would play in the backyard with your friends, where you throw the ball in the air and you kind of fight for it on the other end. And I think McKinney's going to come out with it. So my last one on the list is just kind of a goofy ass one, because you know it's going to happen. You know it's going to be continuous, and I probably could have set the number higher, but I was like, no, let's make it a little bit realistic. So over under 10.5 times they show Jerry Jones after Micah Parsons makes a play. So I made it specifically that, because you know
yeah,
there's going to be specific
yeah,
times that they're going to show Micah on the sidelines next
yeah.
to
And that's the thing
Jerry.
is like, yeah. And I still think it's going to be over because I think he's going to, like, they're going to ham it up where it's like, it's Collinsworth too. So he's going to do the, like, Parsons will probably get like we both have him with 2 sacks, so that's 2 plays, and then he's probably going to have like 3 other tackles, so that's like 5 to get you just about halfway there. But then he's going to have like 7 other pressures where Collinsworth's going to be like, he goes, it's Rashawn Gary who gets the sack, but look at what Micah Parsons does, and it draws all the attention. And look at Jerry up there; he's wishing he was still playing for him and stuff. But I think they'll get it. I have 15, which is a little absurd, but I do think that because it's Collinsworth, he's going to be a little bit, what's it called, a little bit chivalrous and almost, what is the word I'm looking for, just be a little loose with, like kind of like, a home scoring in a baseball game where it's like, is that an error or is that a hit? And like the home team is like, that's a
Yeah.
hit kind of thing and stuff. I think he's a little charitable with it, but you definitely know as well, like if Green Bay is just mowing down Dallas's defense, they're gonna have just Jerry in simulcast and be like, he must be thinking, what could I be doing if Micah was still on my team? They're doing that
Right,
one
and there's
too.
going to be multiple times Micah's going to be with his hands on his hips on the sideline, and you're going to have the
Yeah,
side-by-side images of him and Jerry, and you know it's going to happen because it always happens. It happens more in primetime games, but it also
yeah.
happens during any other game. But primetime games, they always ham it up. They always put that storyline in there. That is another reason why I think that it could be proof that the NFL is scripted, because they always got to have some kind of storyline going into a game. They can't just let the teams play the game. They have to have a storyline with it. And this is the storyline going into this game. So I'm taking over. Realistically, it's probably going to be 11 or 12 times, because, like you said, he's going to get some pressures. He's going to get some tackles. He is going to get a couple sacks. But the amount of times you see him on the screen, easily 50.
They might do how normally it's like the quarterback stats are the one that gets left on the screen when a certain team is up. They might do the like Micah, and they might do like Micah, like pressure stats, sacks and stuff, and then all the Dallas Cowboys. So like I wouldn't put it above Collinsworth and his PFF boys to do something like that. So um, it, it's gonna be, they're gonna make a spectacle out of it, like you said, not just for the scripted part, but that's why they picked these games. This game would have been a spectacle even without the Parsons trade, just because of they had the Netflix special where Jerry talks about how that 2023 playoff game was one of the most painful losses in his ownership of the Cowboys, and the Dez play and all that kind of stuff. So it was already gonna be prime time, like extravagant, no matter who was on what team. But especially when they already threw a match on top of it, and then throwing the Micah trade in addition to it is like throwing like 4 cans of kerosene on top of it to boot and stuff. So yeah, they're gonna.
Also, think of the other side of things. Had the Packers not traded for Micah, Micah still being on the Cowboys, you know how long we would have heard throughout the whole game would have been, well, the Packers tried to make a play for him and, just couldn't get anything done with it. So, that it's just going to be that way throughout the whole game. And they're going to talk about how I'm playing like Nostradamus here. There is no way in my mind this doesn't happen, where they talk about how They're going to compare Micah to Reggie White. They're going to say this is the Packers went outside their normal playbook to do this. They're going to talk about all this shit, and then you're going to have the continuous Jerry Jones. Well, he did this, and I even feel sorry for Kenny Clark because Kenny Clark's going to be drug in the middle of it too.
Yep. Yep. And like the only reason it won't be as nauseating as it could be is Green Bay's not undefeated. Like if Green Bay was undefeated, then you get the whole like imagine where this team would be without him. Would they still be this good? Like no, they wouldn't. Blah blah blah. And they're already going to have all the like how much of it is Micah, how much of it is the other guys, and you know. I know
Although
that
I did find it funny. I read something that Kobe Wooden has already called Kenny Clark about the jersey exchange.
which is funny because I swear to God that a week or two ago they were talking to Rashawn about it, and he was like already kind of noting like, oh, like I'm excited to see him, and want to trade the jerseys with him and stuff like that. So it's really funny to see who's calling dibs on what and stuff. But go win the game first.
And really, we don't have anything on my favorite topic, unless you want to do what I was talking about earlier and call out a certain person who likes to think he knows more than others.
Nah, it's fine. I mean, like I said, it's a moot point because that whole topic of discussion is moot right now because
You left again.
that was the universe saying it is also a moot point. So no.
The only thing I want to do is, it's not necessarily a call out per se, but it kind of miffed me a little bit because I'd really like to know what the hell's going on. But supposedly after LaFleur was asked about Rasheed Walker's comments about undefeated, and I don't know the full scope of it, but supposedly he was pissed off because of Rasheed Walker talking about undefeated. And it's like, why aren't you in your mind supposed to believe you're going to go through the season undefeated?
And he didn't and he didn't say it in a way that was like we're not taking people seriously kind of thing and stuff like that. It was more in like a we have a lot of confidence in how we play and the guys in our locker. It's cocky no matter what, but it's like the like we're talking about ourselves kind, not like we're talking down on everyone else kind of thing and stuff.
Well, it's kind of like Jaden Reed being drugged up and saying we're going to win the Super Bowl. Put it on that kind of level that it's just your confidence in yourself.
Yeah, and I don't like LaFleur taking the easy way out and like just kind of saying like, well, see, that's why we don't do that and all that kind of stuff. Like, I do kind of hate when coaches take that route because, especially when it's like the game after someone makes that kind of comment. But it's like, I get it, and we did kind of talk about it last week where I'm like, I don't mind the younger guys on the team, like, having big dreams and like having goals to strive for and stuff like that. And, I allowed like Xavier McKinney and Parsons for like kind of taking it in stride and be like, hey, like, yeah, like they should, Xavier basically said like the vets are here to keep the guys head on straight, but we do have high expectations of ourselves. They kind of like at the same time told him to cool it, but also said, no, we know we're a good team kind of thing and stuff. But and then of course now Xavier's the one saying like we didn't just become shit overnight kind of thing. Like we're still a good team. Like last week he was like pump the brakes, and this week he's like and pump the brakes again just from the other side of the road. So
but it just makes me wonder, had it been like Micah that said it or Gary that said it or one of those guys that said it, would he still have been this miffed? Or is there something going on with Rasheed Walker that we have no clue, and now every little thing that he does is going to be put under a microscope?
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is like you're talking about a guy who they have made no secret that they're trying to replace at every turn kind of thing. I can have my doubts about the guys on roster that they want to take his place, but I mean, just all the reps that they gave to Morgan this preseason, and kind of with like Walker being the one who was like, no, I'm starting week 1 at left tackle, and like, LaFleur not really being, I think he went out of preseason being like, we've got a lot of things to look at and we're gonna like keep things under review. And it was Walker who, like, the week before us opening week, he was like, I'm starting at left tackle and stuff. So, I don't put too much into it. I just do think it's just a very cheap way for LaFleur to be like, I told you guys to pay attention kind of thing. But also, like you said, I like when my football team is confident and a little cocky, because when you're this kind of professional athlete, you have to be a little bit of an asshole to win. And like, of course the Packers blew it the first chance they could, but I didn't have a problem with it. There was so many people who aha'd it and catch 22 and 2020 hindsighted it, and I hate that crap. Like, if you're so worried about that kind of thing being what brings karmic retribution, that means you don't believe in your team. Like
I said, had it been somebody else like Jordan Love saying it, or Micah Parsons saying it, or Rashawn Gary saying it, would the feelings still have been there? Would they have been like, yeah, I love that? Or would they still have said that's bullshit?
And like I said, like, from LaFleur's point of view, I think it's just cheap for him to come out after the game and be like, oh, that's why we don't say those things. I'm like, say that before the game. Walker said it on Thursday, Wednesday, or something like that. Like, it was out there in the ether, and you wait until after they lose the game to be like, oh, yeah, you see, like, that's why I don't want my guys focusing on that. I want them focusing on 1-0. And, like, that's the thing, too, is like...
To interrupt you on that one a little bit, when he says we want him to go think 1-0, well, what the hell is 1-0? That's undefeated.
That was where I was... That's exactly where I was going, is I'm like... like... And like I said, the way Walker said it, he didn't say, like, we're just going to roll through everyone. He did say, like, we think that with each game, we're better than, we're that good that we should win, each game as it comes to, the way he said it was like, I know it sounds really weird, but it was like, as like respectful of the game as you could say it kind of thing, because it was like we believe that this team is that talented, that confident, that we're that good that you put any opponent in front of us and we can win that game. That was like the context of how he said it. And so yeah, like I said, if LaFleur made these comments last week, I wouldn't have minded as much, because yeah, it's like, okay, the head coach is like telling his guys to simmer down kind of thing. But I do think it's cheap, and like you said, it just kind of makes me roll my eyes, because I agree with you that, like, the way he said it too is like a shut up Fred kind of thing. Like, like shut up to the little brother or annoying cousin kind of thing. Like, I'm like, it's really easy and cheap to do it, on Monday morning quarterbacking your starting left tackle, who you as a coaching staff and front office have made it very clear that you don't intend to bring back next year. But
he could completely have turned the other way and been like, I'm fine, start Morgan, I don't care, I'm not going to play for you guys again. He could have easily done something like that.
Yep. So it is what it is. It's not going to be the thing that, like, rocks the boat to where people are unhappy or anything like that. But like I said, winning cures all that, and that's why I go out to Dallas, get this win, and get the vibes back up into the bye, and everyone's singing.
And that's why I said it really isn't a full shut the fuck up. What the hell are you doing? It's more like, why?
Yeah.
Or the Vince Lombardi, what the hell's going on out here?
Not even shouting it, just kind of like saying it under your breath kind of thing more too. But you have any last thoughts on this week's game?
Just to throw back out there that after the game, we will be doing our post game, but it'll be our live episode also turned into our podcast episode. So you can view it as the best of both worlds. You can view it or whatever. So if you're listening to this, go over to our YouTube, follow us on YouTube. We'll be going live probably half hour after the game, depending on how the game goes and how we're feeling afterwards. But we will be doing it live.
Yep. So that's going to do it for us tonight. Check out the website, ohanapackers.org. Articles are going up. The previous episodes of this and Cheese Talk Radio are on there. Support our merch so that, Joe and I can go to some games maybe, or
We got bills to pay, damn it.
Yeah, just improve the website, improve our writer count and stuff. But follow us on your favorite social medias at Ohana_Packers on Twitter, at Ohana Packers Edition on Instagram. Just search us on Facebook. I keep bringing it up. We want to hit the 100 followers so that we can live stream there as well, in addition to the YouTube page and stuff. Please follow us on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like and a subscribe. And hit us up on all the social medias, the podcasting apps. Give us the input on what you're looking for us to cover. This week, it's going to be live, so it'll be a little different. We want to go over the talking points you guys are looking for. Otherwise, it's just the two of us having fun. And I mean, we're going to have fun with you guys' questions no matter what. But, it's just going to be the two of us kind of riffing and going off the numbers and spitting our thoughts. But, if you guys have anything that you want us to go over, well, please send it our way. On that note, let's go Packers down to Dallas, the second home field. And with that, go Pack go and aloha.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for the up. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for who wanna go.